up rules like the old Indian father who got taken up to the hospital on the bicycle?
Yeah, maybe. Is that what you had in mind? To be a grandfather? Yeah, I'm 38 now, so it's a little late to be a proper lead actor. But yes, maybe a gangster, or, maybe.
So,
it's not my scene though. I can't give up carbs. You have to basically eat nothing if you want to be an actor.
So Eva seems to be asking many questions. I noticed that you had started publishing before you left investment banking. So why had you not stayed in investment banking and published at the same time?
Yeah, that's
how did you manage to write and work in investment banking at the same time? How did you discover that you liked writing when all the time had been sucked up by?
It's a proper interview, huh?
Yes.
Okay, Eva, where are you, Eva?
Eva.
Who's asking so many questions? Huh? Are you are Eva too?
Must be one of your die-hard fans. Right?
We'll settle your bill later. Yeah, we'll
right.
arrange this. No,
so,
I'm just...
so where does your inspiration come from?
Okay.
Observation or just imagination?
Okay. I quit investment banking when the writing became very big. And it was unmanageable for me to pay attention to the job, to the writing and to the family. And my wife also works in a bank. So my kids were getting neglected. So that triggered it because nobody was there for the kids. So I said one of us has to step down, and I have this other thing going, so maybe I should step down. Why should always the women step down, right? Sometimes the man can also go behind the woman. And it's better, right? I like it more. If you are true king of the house, then you should sit at home and I feel. So I felt it's a good idea to do this, and I did that. And during investment banking, it was quite difficult, very stressful to do books as well as banking. And I somehow managed, but it was burning me out. And inspiration is not I'm not a fantasy writer like Harry Potter. So I don't. It's less imagination. It's more based on people, the people I meet, the people I see, what's happening in society. That's my inspiration.
Now, as a former resident of Hong Kong, how would you compare the strengths and weaknesses of between Indian children and Hong Kong teenagers?
Teenagers is quite similar actually everywhere. I think people in Hong Kong are more exposed to world than India. I feel on an average. I think Hong Kong teenagers are a little more exposed to what's happening. But I think Hong Kong is a small place, and that is something which often limits. And it's
Have you traveled extensively in India?
I do. Because as a motivation speaker,
do you speak many dialects?
Yeah. Not many. Just basically, it's the national language. I can, but I'm very bad at some of the dialects. People laugh at me when I try. So unless I'm trying to be funny, I don't attempt those. But yeah, I think it's like because Hong Kong is a small place, it often limits, and it's very urban, and I think that's in that sense they're less close to nature here, I think sometimes.
So, have you been to Goa, the Portuguese enclave?
Oh, lots
on the western coast?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah,
how would that compare with Macau? Have you been to?
I've been to Macau.
Yes.
It's different. It's very different. Goa is more like Phuket actually. So you will, if you like beaches and resorts, and Goa is like that. Macau is of course more casinos and all sorts of fun things. You don't discuss at a book fair. Right? We can have a Macau book fair next time. I wonder who'll what kind of books will sell there.
So, well, I'm a little bit confused by this question. I read it out literally. I think the greater use of your voice as an author is being done by writing columns and talking publicly about Indian politics. What more do you think can you do? What can truly change India? Now, I presume he wants to know, as a speaker and as a columnist, how different is your other careers?
Yeah, it's almost like a separate, I write stories, but I also write columns in newspapers, and often, like you, on politics. And also in my speaking, so you can call it the non-fiction part of my life. In fact, the next month, a book is coming which has all my columns and all my speeches and all that in that. It has, because I have, especially because of social networks, you have Facebook where, there's like 2 million likes. So whatever I say can reach a lot of young people very fast. And my views are read by them. So a lot of politicians pay attention to what I'm saying because they see me as somebody who people read. So from there, some of the reforms we talked about, for example, in education, if I communicate it in national newspapers, it gets some attention, it gets some traction, it builds the public opinion. I don't think I have such a big reach that I can shift the politics at all because India is such a big country, but I can create a discussion. I can education is one of those things, it's a constant problem, but it's not breaking news. And if it's not breaking news, media won't cover it. But every now and then, if someone keeps bringing attention back to it, then things change. And in those ways, I am going to keep trying to do more and more on that front. And that will grow. I think apart from columns, speeches, the social networks is where a lot of stuff can happen. You can really mobilize opinion. If you are right and you have a lot of following, then you can get a lot of support on social networks. So that will be the next frontier for me too, because it's the new literature. Twitter is the new literature. It's okay. You better to accept.
So you are hailed as the best-selling English writer in the history of India. Now, this audience would like to ask, do you consider universality the most important element that appeals to people? Yes.
Yes, I think,
there's the element of universality.
I'm the best-selling writer. I'm not the best writer. It's a difference. And that's something I have to remind myself before I start thinking. And that best-selling comes because, someone once told me, a journalist from Wall Street Journal, that your books, your stories are like ketchup, tomato ketchup. Now, most writers will be offended. Why are you calling my stories like ketchup? So I asked him, what is ketchup, man? I'm writing these books for years, you say ketchup. He says, because the taste of ketchup has been proven. Everybody likes it. All human beings like ketchup. Right? Is there anybody who doesn't like ketchup? Like, it's tomato, it's sour, sweet, everything, salty. It's so yummy. But it will never win a gourmet prize. Right? Nobody will say, ketchup, oh my god, what a dish. But everybody wants ketchup. And I'm very happy to be that ketchup. Because I'm on every table. And I want that so that I can have an impact and create change that way. If I'm caviar, then it's not going to do much for me, even though it's great caviar. So that ketchup is basically talking of universality. I mean, if my story was very, difficult to understand, then obviously it couldn't have been made into a movie, it couldn't have traveled here. So that's, if you want to be bestseller, then universal is the way to go. But if you want to be the best writer, then I don't know how to become one, because I'm not one.
So, why didn't you write your stories or novels in Hindu rather? Why have you chosen to write in
it's just a matter of convenience. Marketing. I was working in the bank and the computer was in English. So it's easier, writing a merger memo, and in the middle of the merger memo, start a romance scene, cut it, email it back to yourself. Practical reasons. Pragmatic. So, and it's just easier. And I don't know, I just find it easier to write on the computer. And the Hindi is not so easy to work with on the...
Hindi, yes. What inspired you to write novels at this point of life, but not any time earlier or later?
I always wanted to write. In fact, I met one journalist here. One of the first things I published as a story. I used to write in college, in school, and in the bank also. I published in the Young Morning Post. And if you look at 2003, you'll find Peter Gordon is sitting here. He was the only publisher who was known in Hong Kong. So I went to him. And he said, no, this is not a story for us. This is an Indian story. You should go to Indian publisher. And I think that was a good advice. So like, my God, so many questions. Huh? People have to eat dinner. Hello? Like, I know they like the writer and all, but food, it's more universal. Okay.
So what is the conflict? What are the conflicts between you and the director of The Three Idiots? Did
yeah,
you
when the
out?
movie came out, there was some conflict on the credit.
Right, true. Yes.
You know, they put my name.
They buried it somewhere.
They buried it in the end next to the hairdresser.
Why did they do that?
I don't know. I mean, I think hairdresser does a very important job. But I think the person who writes the story has a little more importance than the hairdresser. Although I know without a good hairdresser, I mean, everybody would have noticed bad haircuts.
He should appear in the first 2 minutes, like James Bond.
Yeah,
based on the novels by Ian Fleming.
Yeah, so it became a big controversy because the book was already popular. So it's not, they did it because they do it all the time with unknown writers. It's common practice. Especially if you've written a script for them and it's not available as a book, there is no way you can do anything. But because I was on social networks, so people started talking. And it became a big national controversy. And he ended up giving me more publicity than he would have if he had given my name next to the, screenwriter or whatever.
So long as you complain and protest.
I just put a blog. I didn't complain. I didn't go to court or I didn't do anything like that. But I just put a blog, and because I have a big readership, it just became viral, and the movie was becoming very popular. So it was an ugly phase. I mean, I felt really let down because it wasn't required, and everybody knows the book and everything. But I felt that this is what happens to writers all the time because we don't have a system yet. In Hollywood, you have a system that credit number 4 is going to be the writer. I didn't even know there is some standardization like this. So it's Bollywood is big, but it's not very organized. Everybody kind of does their own thing. So I'm part of that generation where things are still getting sorted out. It happened like that, but it won't happen for the subsequent movies. Now I check in the contract. Believe it or not, it's there in the contract now. The name will be there up front, and the font size will not be smaller than that of the director. I mean, we have this Asian thing. Like, director told me, faith, you have faith in me, no? I'll make sure you get your name. You don't trust me? I'm making a movie on your story and you're not trusting me? I'm putting...
You should be grateful.
You should be grateful.
The film is spreading your name out.
Producer says, I'm putting money behind your story and you're not trusting us about the credit. You want the credit clause in the contract. And I was working in Hong Kong at that time. I didn't have time, this, that. And then it comes. And now I will say, you have to put it up front. The font size, the thickness, it's all there. And it's not the way I like to do business, but I have no choice now. So now it's going to be there, and I'm going to measure the font size. If it's not there, they're going to court.
So we're expecting a more prominent
now it's
Chetan Bhagat
opening credit.
and the Three Mystics. That's going to be
now because the book, because the first movie did well, they want to put my name because it gets them more money. But that time, it was my first book, so they were able to do this. And also they know I make a lot of noise if they put me next to the hairdresser.